Welcome to.
Welcome to
Oh my God, Jared! You just God damn it!
what?
Oh,
What?
welcome
What?
to, but that's not important right now.
Welcome to that. That's not important right now. You never
Welcome.
get the goddamn thing right.
No, I come with you. We really have to practice this thing. You know, if
Yeah,
we
we do.
were if we were on a movie set, you
Yeah.
know, you would be like take two, take three, take four, take
Take
20,
47.
take 47. That. Who was the famous director who used to he was
Oh boy.
famous. There are a lot of them, but there was one who was oh gosh, he did Zizou, Life of Aquatic. Um,
Are we talking about Wes Anderson?
Wes Anderson the one who is
I think.
famous? He did the one with Gene Hackman was the family. It was very, very weird. Was that Wes
Royal.
Anderson? Royal
Could be Wes Anderson.
Tenenbaums.
Royal Tenenbaums. It's
Royal
either Wes
Tenenbaums.
Anderson or David Russell. If
Might
it's
have
David
been
Russell.
it might have been David Russell because there is a famous story of
Yes.
him that was recorded of him going
Yes.
completely apeshit.
Yeah. I remember that.
With
I
I think it was
remember.
Helen Mirren. It was Helen Mirren
It
who
wasn't Helen Mirren.
was
It
it
was Lily Tomlin.
Lily Tomlin. There you go.
It was Lily Tomlin. It wasn't the Royal Tenenbaums either. It was I Heart
Oh,
Huckabees.
I Heart Huckabees. That's what
It
I
was
remember.
I Heart
Yeah.
Huckabees.
I
Something had
Heart
happened.
Huckabees.
Something had happened, and I think he had snapped, and so did Lily.
Yes. And they just started
And
shouting at each other and trading insults. And he
right,
walked off the set and
he
then he
did.
came back. He came back
Yeah,
and said, and you know what I think? And that was it. I was just, I mean, famous
he did not.
director, famous.
He did that. He even did that with George Clooney, but he soon realized that Lily Tomlin is not George Clooney
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah. George
on the
Clooney
set,
is a very calm, and
yeah,
he would just let it ride.
he
Lily
was just like right.
Tomlin, mm,
But George Clooney can only take so much because on the set
mm,
of Three Kings, when he pushed George too far, George let him have
mm,
it,
mm.
and George punched him in the face. and, and yeah, and and Russell and David Russell was saying, well, you know what? I still want to work with Clooney, and Clooney's like, Clooney was just, I don't want to work for that unprincipled, and so on and so forth. So yeah,
No, but the most famous one. Okay. So before we continue, and everybody's like, "What the hell are we listening to?" I thought we were talking about advertising.
yeah.
Sorry, we digress. Welcome to, but that's not important right now. The
The thing
podcast
about you see,
about advertising.
the thing about advertising is that we don't necessarily talk about advertising per se. It
No.
is the central theme of
Yeah.
this podcast.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the thing about it is, how do we get ideas? How do we get ideas that will inspire us to come up with ads and ads that are
Yeah.
memorable or funny,
Yeah.
that are thought provoking? That is what we think about. We do not
Yeah.
necessarily think of ads as a certain individual put it. We don't see ads as award winning. We want to see
Yeah.
ads as memorable. We want to see them as funny. We want to see them as
Yeah.
thought provoking. That sort of
Yeah.
thing. And how do we
Yeah.
get our inspiration? We get our inspiration from all sorts of things. And most notably, we get them from watching films.
Yeah.
I mean, if we make a reference to a particular movie, that is like a seed or a trigger for another idea to take
Yeah.
shape,
Yeah.
so they could
Yeah.
emerge from the morass of what we talk about.
Yeah.
And we hope that it becomes an idea that will eventually be an ad, whether it's print, whether it's radio, whether it's television, whether it's online, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So if you look
So
at it from,
so Jared and I used to work in an ad agency.
yes,
and
we
we
did.
talk and we talk about our experiences in the ad agency. And there are not a lot of movies about ad agencies. There's the TV series Mad Men, which
Mad Men,
I took
yeah.
a lot of inspiration from to start this podcast because
Right.
As I explained to one of my friends, who said she didn't like Mad Men, and
Mhm.
I wanted to tear a new one. I said, "Are you insane? That it may have happened in the '60s into the early '70s, but that is essentially down to its core working in advertising. The characters, the temperaments, the kind of attitudes, that's what I met. And I think, Jared, you met that too in some
Yeah.
form or fashion when you joined the agency. Now we call it the
Yeah.
agency, we don't mention the name. A lot of those who listen to us um, know who we're talking about by association.
Mhm.
None of our former co-workers who we haven't invited to the show have messaged me or Jared to tell us, all they're talking about me. Why are they talking about me? Stop talking about me. Nothing like that has happened. Right? So I think they enjoy it. So if you enjoy this bending over and being paddled by the two of us,
That's true.
ole,
That's true. I
ole.
mean, they've never had. Maybe they've never had cause. Maybe they've never had the cause to listen to us,
No,
or maybe
well,
they have
I
listened.
I hope one day somebody says, I want to be on your podcast so I can tell my side of the story. And we welcome that.
I
We
mean,
want
and
more
yeah,
people to.
that's it.
Yeah.
We would
Anyway,
want that.
we're recording this kind of late today. Usually we record this on a Wednesday. Today we're recording on Thursday because I went to the cinema yesterday. And
Oh, you look at you going to the
I was
movie.
I was very happy because I haven't gone to cinema in a year.
Yeah,
But actually I've
yeah.
been to cinema 3 times this week and yesterday was the last time. So I went to see Dune on Sunday. I
How
went to
was
see
it?
that. Dune is very good. And
Really?
I'm pissed off at our local IMAX cinema. I'm a little perturbed. They are my clients, so I can't say too bad things about them because they're lovely people. I want to shout out to the Jaras who run and Christina who run and do the marketing for Cinema One. IMAX,
Hmm.
they have been going through hell and I give them props because I really hope that they bounce back from all of
Yeah.
this nonsense that's going on. But they have stopped showing Dune after a week. And I didn't think that was fair because I was waiting for Dune since like the beginning of the week, beginning of last month, and the projector was down. So
Oh,
they've had bad things happen to them, and I wish them
oh
well.
my goodness.
But
Yeah.
but I was hoping that they would keep doing on for like at least 2 weeks, and they stopped it after a week. And I was going to take my kids to go and see it because I think it's that easy to understand.
Yeah.
It's not that boring. It's actually quite engaging, and you need to see it in IMAX because the
Mm.
IMAX experience. So I'm actually going to take them to see it in the normal multiplex Movie Town on and shout out to Movie Town too. I think any business that has to go through what they're going through right now needs to be applauded for this kind of
I
what they
know.
have to go through. You
Yeah,
know,
because yeah, I know because I went to the movies. I went to the movies last week Saturday. I
Mhm.
watched No Time to Die,
Right?
and I have to say that it's probably one of the best Bond films I've
Mm.
seen in a long time.
There,
I think
there are
it's just
much. There are much.
the oh lordy hey
Oh,
that
I
is
love her. She was just amazing. She was like,
yes
I don't know what I'm doing, but she was just like, oh my God, I love her. I love her. I love her. I love her. I
yeah
love her to
yeah
death.
yeah
Yeah.
she's
Yeah. It
she
was a
makes
good
my liver
movie.
quiver and in the good way. It was either her. Oh, come on. You know what I mean. Um, it was either her or Leia Seydoux. Leia's lovely. She's a
Oh
lovely
yeah,
woman,
she's
but
there. She's there. But she was given a kind of plain look because
yeah,
it was designed that way, but she has a very she's very European. She's a very
she
European
reminds me a
kind of
little bit.
thing.
She reminds me a little bit, not much, but a little bit of Drew Barrymore.
Mm,
Um, a kind of like a Drew Barrymore look. But
mm,
I mean, if I had to choose between Leia and Anna de Artemis, it would be Anna de
mm,
Artemis every day of the week
mm,
and on Sunday.
mm,
So yeah,
mm.
you know what I mean. She'd put her
I
shoe. She
asked
could
my
put her shoe. Uh-huh.
I asked my friend how she was able to wear that dress and do all those stunts, and she said, "Tape,
Tape.
tape."
Hmm.
I like
Really?
tape. She's like tape, Ian, tape. I like, oh,
Is
oh,
that right?
oh,
Because that would
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
right. That would prevent certain extremities from getting.
yeah. Wardrobe malfunctions. Remember the famous wardrobe
Right.
malfunction?
So
Right.
yes, the world famous wardrobe malfunction with Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake. If you
Yeah,
have no idea what we're talking about, Google it, put it on YouTube. For
yeah,
those of you who are too young
yeah.
to know what the hell we're talking
I
about,
think after that is when they did the 5 second delay. Was
that's
it?
when they did the 5 second. Yeah.
That's when they did it.
That-
They started the 5 second delay. So kiddies who are listening, who don't
yes.
know, everything is 5 second delayed because of Janet Jackson.
Yes. No, it wasn't because of Janet Jackson. It was because of Justin Timberlake. Because Justin Timberlake
Well,
was the guy. He was the one who ripped her outfit in such a way, and then out popped the pretty boob, and that was the end of everything. So yeah,
that was the end of everything. Yeah. But anyway,
yeah,
coming back to why we're here. We uh, we are in the industry of selling stuff, and
that's right.
there's a lot of inspiration we pull from popular media. So popular media being movies, books, whatever. Um, but as I was saying, today is Thursday. Today is a holiday, a public holiday in our country. Where else is it a public holiday? It's not. It's not a public holiday in any other part of the world, though.
It would be.
Other than
It would be.
India.
It
In
probably would
India, it's
be.
a public holiday. But
It would
I
be.
don't.
It would be a public holiday in Guyana.
Oh yes, that's right. It's a public holiday in Ghana.
It would be a
But
public
isn't it?
holiday in Guyana, and yes, mhm.
Okay, I'll have to
I think
Google that. But today
it's
is
also a public
Diwali.
Diwali
So
or
happy
Deepavali
Diwali. Huh?
or
Deepavali.
Deepavali if you want to be, or do you want to be if
Deepavali.
you want to be technical, or
No,
you
they
want to be
spell
technical.
Diwali. They spell
Yes.
Diwali differently. In India, it's with a W, and here locally in the Caribbean, it's with a V. But I think
Right.
the Guyanese use the W as well. We are the only ones who use it with a V. We have to be
Yeah.
different. We
You
have
know
to be
what?
different, but
Aren't we always? Aren't we always?
we're
Um,
sometimes too different.
a bit too different for our liking.
Too
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
But
Here's a little
uh-huh.
here's a little bit of a history lesson. Diwali was not a public holiday in Trinidad and Tobago until about 1966.
Mm,
There's something there for
that's interesting. As a side story, I if you are married in the Hindu faith, this was told to me by my sister-in-law. Um, well, she's married to my brother, so that would make her my sister-in-law, wouldn't it? I'm not sure.
you. Yeah, that I think that would be the logical
Yeah,
progression.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
not my wife's sister. I don't have a wife, but
Yeah.
she said that when she collected the marriage certificate, because they got married in the Hindu faith, when she collected the marriage certificate, they didn't list her occupation. They just said wife of. So I mean, she's a forward-thinking. I wouldn't say she's a feminist. She's not a feminist, but
Mhm.
she's not a she's not she's modern. What do you call it? Modern.
A
Oh my
modern,
God. Oh my God,
very
Divani, I'm sorry. I don't want to describe you wrong, but the thing is that she was most, what's the word? She was the most,
picked off, miffed.
a
What
little
she
miffed
was.
at the fact
Yeah.
that they listed her husband's occupation, but not hers. So she went back
Ah.
and she asked, why is there nothing here about, her profession? And they said, well, it wasn't listed in the document submitted by the funded. And she realized that the pundit didn't put it down. And I think that it's a cultural thing, you see. Now, the reason I'm saying this is not to broadcast everybody's business, but the reason is that the reason why that things happen the way they do is that Hinduism was not seen as a religion, at least in the sense of being recognized for a long time in this country and in Ghana and various other places. because of colonialism and living under the boot heel of the British Empire and so on. You know, it took the independence of India to kind of push this thing into, well, we have to acknowledge, you know, the religion. But
Mhm.
internally in the religion itself, there are a lot of things that are still throwbacks, you know. So we were talking before we came on about the fact that, um, it's a religious festival, and we need to see it as a religious festival. And we had a politician, who was it, a couple of weeks ago, who made a big deal about meat. We eat chicken during Diwali. Who said there was that?
Oh my goodness! As I recall, there was this ad. They were talking about a particular curry cube, and the thing about it is the curry
Ah, it
cube
was for
is
the political party. That's right.
in
It
the
was for the
political
political
party.
party.
This
Right.
now this political party was support. They ran this print ad. I think they ran it online as well. They were talking about this curry cube. And the thing about it is, in the curry cube, you had you could have chicken and so on. Now, as um, as most Hindus will tell you here in Trinidad and Tobago, those who practice their faith devoutly, Diwali is the kind of religious festival where it is better. It is better that you have a vegetarian meal. That is the way, because you can't have meat or anything like that. And I mean, that is the strictest interpretation of observing the festival by not having meat. And it can be perceived as offensive to Hindus, insulting
Mhm,
even, if you
mhm,
decide, well, we're going to have meat, and you are advertising it as such on a religious holiday as this. It's like it's like saying that you're going to observe, the Muslim festival of Eid,
mhm.
and you're selling Jira pork. It,
Yeah,
it, it the two it just doesn't jive. The two just don't jive.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
The dog
from
agrees. The dog agrees.
exactly, yeah. Yeah, it's one of the
And
background
I
noises
mean,
we have.
that that um that actually leads me into a story about the agency.
Mhm.
Um, so when we have these religious festivals, we usually celebrate them in the agency, and all companies kind of do it. You know, you dress up.
True.
It's what do you call it? Wouldn't we call it costume dress up? It's kind of bad to say it costume dress up, but
No, not at
essentially
all. Not at
it
all.
comes down to that if you're outside looking in. I mean, if you're
Yes.
outside and you're not used to that kind of expression of diversity, it looks like you're just appropriating somebody's culture. You know, some people would say, "Oh no, you're just dressing as you're not a Hindu, you're just dressing as a Hindu." That's
Or
not it at
or
all.
it's an excuse, to be quote unquote woke.
Exactly. But it's
Mhm.
not that. It's a celebration. So we do it for Emancipation Day, we do it for
Yes,
Diwali, we do it for Eid. Eid and Diwali kind of similar in the dress. You know,
exactly.
it's kind of
You
East
do.
Indian.
Right, right.
Um, and then then we have Christmas and people dress up, wearing Christmas stuff that's usually associated with the United States or whatever. And then Halloween, of course. By the way, if you haven't
Halloween
listened to our
is a recent addition to the thing. Yeah,
Yeah, we were
um,
talking about that today with my brother and them because because of the advertising, the
mhm.
marketing. It's been so strong now that we are celebrating all of these days because we're trying to get a sale through and we're trying to promote something. You see? So Halloween has become this thing where you dress up or whatever, because that's kind of been fueled. Christmas in Trinidad, and I think we had mentioned this before in an earlier episode, that the
Mhm.
only other people who are as crazy about Christmas as Trinidadians are the Bahamians. And we had talked about
Yes.
that in a previous episode. But Christmas in Trinidad is only because, not only because, you could probably correct me if I'm wrong, because we had the American influence here during World War II,
Right.
we got the Coca-Cola. And Coca-Cola invented the Santa. And you could go on and say those are the things that
Well,
kind of sparked, that kind
well,
of
okay.
love of Christmas,
Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola did not necessarily, Coca-Cola did not necessarily invent Santa. A lot of people tend to think that it was Coca-Cola that played a key role in coming up with the image of Santa Claus. That's not necessarily so. You have to thank one guy for that. And he had nothing to do with Coca-Cola. The guy who wrote "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," that was Clement C. Moore. He wrote it back in 1822. And he was the one who came up with the description of Santa Claus for the first time ever. He described him as this elderly, fat, white guy. His belly resembled a bowl full of jelly, and he had a hearty laugh and everything. And that was the Santa Claus that people got to know. Now, it wasn't until because Coca-Cola came about in 1886. Coca-Cola was invented in 1886 by an Atlanta chemist, John Stipe Pemberton. So I think at the turn of the century, and this is subject to correction, I think by the turn of the century, you had this artist, I think his name was Haddon Sundblom. He was the guy who was inspired by Clement C. Moore's "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" and came up with this image of Santa Claus as this elderly fat guy with and he kind of popularized it. It was already there. The image was already there, but he popularized it even more. So Coca-Cola helped propel that persona of Santa Claus, elevated it even more.
Yeah, but it was illustrated by Norman Rockwell. Norman Rockwell built what we now know as the modern Santa Claus. In his sense, he kind of friendlialized it a lot, and he did that for Coca-Cola. So though I agree with you that maybe Coca-Cola didn't invent him, but they sure as hell pushed the hell out of him, because Norman Rockwell did painting after painting every year for Santa Claus, and this image of jolly Saint Nick with the red rose cheeks and so on, and the round belly and so on. I don't think that existed before Norman Rockwell.
But okay, are you sure it was Norman Rockwell though? Are you sure? Okay, I'm not.
For a while. No, for a while. I eventually, because this is in the 30s or the 40s. Eventually, it moved off. But the image of Santa Claus. Now, we put out a challenge, put a voice note in the comments, and tell us, Jared and Ian, you're talking absolute shit. You all don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. Stop doing this podcast because you all are all mentally challenged, right? We'll be okay with that. We'll be cool. I would say Jared is more mentally challenged than I am. But anyway, that's not important right now.
No, but
I can Wikipedia it, I can Google it. But I do remember reading somewhere that Norman Rockwell had some sort of, in the beginning, because in the beginning he was a little bit more Krampus looking, if I remember. He was an elf with long pointy ears and he looked kind of devilish.
Yeah.
And I think they softened him up. They softened him up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know. So
because again, I don't know how they came up with this idea that Saint Nick was supposed to be an elfish character, because the history behind Santa Claus is based on some guy from Turkey who is Saint Nicholas.
Yeah.
And when the Dutch immigrants, when they had the Dutch colonists, the Dutch settlers, when they settled in New Amsterdam in America, which was later to be known as New York, when they celebrated Christmas there, they called him Sinterklaas.
Right.
And if you say Sinterklaas a few times fast, it becomes Santa Claus. Sinterklaas, Santa Claus. So,
yeah.
So how
that's strange, because in Spanish Santa is holy. So Santa Claus is holy. So now you got this Holy Claus shit going around. It's like this is Jesus. This is the new Jesus. And anyway, so to wheel back again into advertising for this season thing. Diwali is kind of similar. that the whole idea of the day and the light has become
What I
synonymous with
what
Diwali,
I
right? Because it's part of the festival.
what I love about it is that sometimes, and this is I thought this is a really fantastic concept. Many years ago, this was back in the 80s, there was a fabric store. I think it no longer exists. A fabric store by the name of Queensway had something called the
I
Festival of
remember
Light
too,
Sale.
Jay.
The
Yeah.
Festival of Light Sale. And the thing
Mm-hmm.
about it is, they were able to tie in the diyas to
Mm-hmm.
the Christmas tree lights. And they were
Mm-hmm.
saying in the ad itself that it was a celebration of life and of light. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought, my God, that is so beautiful. You were able to successfully integrate um, a Hindu festival with a somewhat, I mean, Christmas is Christian, yes, but it also has its roots in pagan mythology and what have you. But you were
Mm-hmm.
able to take the two and merge them together and make it into a beautiful concept. And you call it the Festival of Lights.
Yeah.
And you talk about the holiness of Diwali, and you merge it with the holiness of Christmas. And I don't
Yeah.
think there's ever been any other place on earth that has ever come up with something so revolutionary and so universal in its appeal, in that
Yeah.
you took those two festivals and you called it the Festival of Lights. And
Yeah.
that's I think that is when, for me, that is when um advertising in Trinidad and Tobago started to grow up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because in the past, when particularly in the 1970s, you always had, you had your customary greetings, Happy Diwali, you put a lit dia, as a print ad or on TV. Just show a lit dia, Happy Diwali from whoever, and
Right.
end of the story. No
But that's what
thought.
we're still doing. We're still doing that. We're
Well, yeah,
still
but
doing
we
that.
were true, true, but we've been able to come up with far more creative ways of doing
Yeah. Yeah, that's agreed.
it.
It's true. I
That
mean, it has matured. That's true.
it has matured considerably. Um, and you find as well that Diwali in Trinidad and Tobago has become, it is no longer, uh, it is, yes, it is, for all intents and purposes, a Hindu religious festival. That is what it is at its core. But you find now that there are so many non-Hindus who appreciate it, who celebrate it for what it is.
Mhm.
And that is a beautiful thing. So you
Mhm.
find now that there are places where you never think that they would say, well, Shiv Diwali to, it's everywhere now. It's almost
Mhm.
every organization, every place of business, almost every place of business is saying Happy Diwali, Shiv Diwali, and they find creative ways and means to interpret it. Sometimes I think I remember, if memory serves me right, there was an ad that we did when I was at the agency,
Mhm.
and you can correct me if I'm wrong, for a particular milk brand. And what was beautiful about it was, instead of the lit flame representing the dia,
Mhm.
it was like a burst of milk.
Mhm.
You see, a
Mhm.
liquid, like liquid, and to make it
Yeah.
look like as if it was a dia. And
Yeah.
it was done beautifully. It was
Yeah.
done absolutely
Yeah.
beautifully.
I think we started that trend because now I
Yeah,
just saw creamy
yeah,
powdered milk doing
yes.
something that looks really good, but I mean, it's the same idea, you know?
It's the same. It's
Um,
pretty much the same idea. Yeah.
I remember we had done layout after layout after layout for a Diwali ad, a press ad for Klim, and we hadn't gotten Klim as a client. We weren't supposed to have Klim as a client because we had a competing milk brand, right? Those of you, I don't know if many of you know what Klim is. You all probably do know, but you're like, Klim, boy, that's an old brand. Klim is a very old brand. It's one of Nestle's uh, oldest brands. It's basically milk
It is.
backwards. I always
It's
thought that
milk
was cool.
backwards.
It's milk backwards, and they own that. But anyway, so we were there. We were there. You know, account executive who was working. He's now in charge of the agency, but at the time he was just a lowly account executive. Lowly. Um, he's like, Ian, come into my office immediately. No, no. He was like, look, the client has asked us because the other agency who's doing the work cannot get it done. Has asked if we could give it a crack. And it's very down low. It's not on the books as per se. Ian, would you like to take a crack at it? And I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. Why not? And I remember there was no brief. There was just do a
There never
Diwali
is.
ad. No, for Diwali ad, they kind of give you a brief. We want you to say you want to be in line with the brand and try to be within the brand or whatever. There was no. This is Clem and these are the people we trying out. There was nothing. There was just Ian go and do a Diwali ad for Clem. Now for the competing brand, I had also done a Diwali ad for the competing brand. Right, there's a whole other story in itself. That one I'll talk about that just now. For the contrast, that had a brief. That was a brief. But this one was Ian, just do something. You have today to give me something by this evening. So we had this office that used to belong to the TV ad director, who had retired. So he no longer worked there, and there was nobody in that office.
Right.
I remember, um, I remember closing the door, turning off the lights, closing the windows, and getting this dark room. And I got from the prop room because we had an extensive prop room. We had stuff. Wonderful Suzanne can shout out to Suzanne.
Hi,
Suzanne.
Suzanne.
Suzanne had this huge prop room, and I just took tons and tons of stuff, and most of it was Indian cloth. And I found because of that shoot that I had to do for that other competing brand ad, I took the puja, what they call the puja jar. For people who don't know what a puja is, it's a prayers for Hindus that Hindus have,
Right.
and it's a specially shaped kind of urn made out of clay. And I took that and I made this rainbow of colors coming out of this puja jar. Now, in hindsight, I have it here somewhere in my computer. In hindsight, if I look at it now, I go, yeah, what the hell were you thinking? That is so, because somebody now would think, people would think that that's being disrespectful because you're
Yeah.
taking a religious item and making, but I wasn't thinking of that. I was just thinking of this, I wanted to show the different kind of, colors of Trinidad, society or whatever. That was what kind of was in my mind. And I was just putting things together and, and then I threw a light on it. We had a little studio light. And I took the digital camera that we had and I just started shooting different ways of making this thing, look mysterious and kind of lighted. And then while I was shooting, I said, but the light is kind of refracting off the little things in the, what do you call them, in the fabric. What
Well,
is it called?
sequence.
The sequins, right? And the studs. And I thought, oh, that's so nice. That's really cool. So I took like about 100 photos. The varying degrees of this light. There's just one light, one camera, this thing, and I just created this one layout. I threw it in there, put the claim ad, and I got Asma, who was working there at the time, to give me, I think it was Asma, to give me a line. And she just said, well, just put Shud Diwali from Klim. And I like, nice. And we kind of put that in the generic. Right now, I'd look at it and go, yeah, what were you thinking? Why would you use this terrible generic? It's called Sanskrit. Sanskrit is the name of the font. And whenever you do a Diwali ad, you use a Sanskrit font. And if you scroll through my Instagram at Redesigns, I talk about the Sanskrit font in a post because that's what that was Diwali. That was the Diwali typeface. They call it Diwali
Yeah.
typeface.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I said, this is never going to fly. The client is never going to like this. But I had fun doing it, and I submitted it.
Mhm.
Approved. The client loved it.
There we
And
go.
the account executive said, yeah, you put us in the right position because the client is now listening to us. He loves it so much, he wants framed, you know? And I did that within 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours. And people were like, what? Opening the door, like, what are you doing in here in the dark? What are you doing? And I'm like, I'm fucking shooting a motherfucking commercial, you mother. Yeah, coming and ruining my shot. I started to become all Wes Anderson, or whatever his name is, Russell, the
You
director.
went David Russell. You went,
Yeah, get out of my room. Yeah. Anyway, so that was the success story. Just quickly, the other story was that the year before the client that we both worked on at some point, I'm pretty sure, the milk client. I don't want to use their name because it's or should I say the name? I said Clem. Should I say the other name?
no,
No.
let's just leave it like
Yeah,
that.
Clem is okay, but you know,
Clem is okay.
Clem is okay. But this is a local milk, powdered milk. And we worked on this. I worked on this client, and we mentioned them before in a previous episode about pitching for this job. Anyway,
Okay.
so the Christmas brief came in, and I remember reading the brief and saying it's a um, Christmas, what you call it? Um,
What a Christmas celebration, a Christmas.
It's a Christmas greetings ad, right?
Christmas greeting.
And then they gave you the usual spiel about the brand and the target and his moms and kids and the ad needs to have kids in it and needs to show the milk and da da da. And it was really really detailed. And I'm like,
Did it also feature a customary hot air balloon?
no.
Because
No.
if it's the same milk product we're talking
I know.
about.
Yeah, no. Now they had moved on from that. But we had done an ad for them just before they left. We had done an ad for them, and I always remember that. But this year, I was put in charge of doing this ad with Suzanne. Suzanne and I had to work on this ad together. So Suzanne and I had to sit down. Suzanne was our producer. I said, Suzanne, what are we going to do? And she said, I have no idea. So I'm like, well, why can't we just show the two kids, lighting? Because, your client also dictated that they had to show themselves doing the lighting like it was at a puja. Now, it's difficult to explain if you don't understand the culture. But if you understand how pujas work, it's done in a tent, it's on the floor, the pundit and all the other people are around this little box shape, flat box shape, and there's a pan in the middle with flowers around it and lit with incense and so on. It's very, very, a lot of symbolism goes into it. And then this clay jar, and then the day on top, and you light the day, and that is a symbol of, the light. And the client insisted that we had to shoot that. So I did a drawing of how it should look, and the client said, okay. They weren't too concerned. They wanted to shoot it the way they wanted it. And I just remember saying to Suzanne, something about this doesn't make any sense, but let's go and do it. So we went and we had to cast the kids. We got a girl and a boy. We got a nice background, and we went in. I didn't go to the shoot. Now, if I had gone to the shoot, I may have said something is wrong here, but I didn't think of it at the time. And I went ahead and built the ad and did all the necessaries, put the headline and all that. I went through all the levels of approvals. And our wonderful friend, our traffic manager at the time, well, we used to call him Creative Services Manager, Mr. Errol Peru. Errol, if we just want to give a shout out to Errol, who has his own radio show called Cruise Media, plays music on Facebook. So go and like his page, Cruise Media. Errol, after the ad was printed, it was in the papers, Errol said, how are they could shoot this? I'm like, what? What's wrong with it? He's like, so he calls me and Suzanne and he says, well, they didn't think this through. I'm like, no, because this is what the client requested. Yeah, the client requested, but you did it, you're wrong. This is wrong. Y'all shouldn't be doing this. So Suzanne said, Errol, what is the problem? The kids are standing up next to the puja table. Well, the puja box.
Right.
Suzanne
And they're
put
not
it on
supposed
a
to be.
box because she said she couldn't get the kids' position right, so she had them stand up and she put it on a table. And that, just doing that, changed the whole thing from being authentic Diwali. I mean, it wasn't even
Mhm.
authentic Diwali because it was a puja. You don't really do a
Right.
puja during Diwali, but anyway, the
No,
symbolism is
so
there. But you
right.
don't put that on a table. And to this day, I am mortified by it. And I always think to myself, oh my gosh, that was what was bothering me. Because it was an instruction.
Mhm.
And the client was on the shoot. The client was there. Now I remember the client being a very young girl at the time, and she was, well, I want to say she was part of the ethnicity. And
Mhm.
she should have kind of known that you don't do that. But nobody picked it up. Nobody picked it up. Now, thank God, nobody in the entire country actually said anything. Only we
Wow.
got no, we got no clap back. We got no. Well, in those days there was no social media.
Well,
If we had
no.
done that
Thank God
now,
for that.
if we
Thank
had
God
done
for
that
that.
now,
Yeah.
that client would have been raked over the coals by a certain sector of society. And you know, there was
Yeah.
one guy who represented a lot of the Hindu population in this country, and
Mhm.
he would have been mad upset.
Oh, he
Now,
would have been livid. He would have been livid.
but I think all these ads used to have to go through him to be approved. They used to send it to him. They used to send it to the organization to approve, and even they didn't pick it up. So if they didn't pick it up, who are we?
You
You
know,
know, and Errol had a good point. Errol's like, you all need to think about the culture that you're dealing with. And he was right. He's absolutely correct. And to this day, I always say, and especially when it comes to greetings ad, is this proper for the I got raked over the coals for another for EDAD later on, but that wasn't my fault. That was the again Suzanne. I love Suzanne, but you know things miscommunication all that. And anyway, so that's my story.
huh. Isn't it interesting though that isn't it interesting that when you get a brief, right, and the brief says it doesn't offer that many instructions. They just want you to come up with an ad. It, and then something happens inside of you in that you say, hey, now I have creative carte blanche to do whatever I want with this ad.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you're no longer constrained by what, would this be would this be right if I did this? Would they have a fit if I did that? What if I had it at this particular angle? What if I came
Mm-hmm.
up with a turn of phrase, something along those lines? What
Mm-hmm.
if I had done something like that? Would that
Yeah,
get me into any trouble? You
yeah,
know,
yeah. We talked about that before when we talked about greetings ad and so on, because greetings ad are a big thing in the ad industry here.
they are.
It's still a big thing, and I'm looking scroll through Instagram and just looking at all the greetings ads, and all of them are basically saying dear, 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 dear. My greeting ad, I decided I was going down that route this morning, and I said everybody's gonna have a dear. I decided to just go straight, very simple, very not generic, but you know something different. Because I mean, it becomes like just a wash. You just washes over you. You know this
I mean,
constant state of
you can only do so many things with a dia.
yeah. It's true.
You can only do so many things with a dia. So now you have to come up with something that is extremely different. And that is the problem right there.
Yeah.
And but I think sometimes we tend to um we tend to ignore the concept of simplicity because
Yeah.
simplicity is the key to coming
Yeah.
up with a really terrific ad.
Yeah.
And of course it applies to Diwali greetings as well. So
Yeah.
so if you have somebody in prayer, or just suing somebody in prayer, or somebody like that. Not necessarily
Yeah.
lighting of diyas, but just somebody in devotional prayer, that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
That would be something that people would look at and say, "Hey, this is
Yeah.
beautiful. This is
Yeah.
simple. This is something that we can identify with, and
Yeah.
let's go with that." But
Yeah.
after a while, everything is like a dia after a dia. It's a beautiful, like I
Yeah.
said, it's a beautiful thing. But you run the risk of coming up with a greeting ad. People look at it, oh, how pretty, and then 5 seconds later, you forget it.
And move
You
on to the
forget it.
next one. You see the
It's
next one, you
pretty,
go, oh, pretty. Next one, pretty. Next
pretty,
one,
next one,
pretty.
pretty, and then
No,
your mind is so saturated. Your
yeah.
mind is so saturated
I
with
can't remember. Well, that's not true. There's one I do remember only because it was bad.
oh,
That-
oh,
okay,
woo,
so I saw it today and I sent it to the guy who I know did it. And I
uh-huh,
said, what? Now, I'm not going to say the brand, but
uh-huh.
essentially, it's difficult to associate water with fire. You follow? You could make water look like fire, no problem, but that's done. Everybody's done that. So what he
Right.
did was he kind of put the product in the background, kind of like a silhouette kind of thing, just to tie it back to the brand.
Mhm.
And I think he got this, I don't know where they got this picture, this deer, but this deer is huge with a small flame, right? Because deer, you see, deers are small things with large flames. That's the key to deer. It's designed that way. It's supposed to be the fire bigger than the darkness. So you need to kind of cheat a little and show the deer, not tiny, 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 but you need to make sure the flame is large because the focus of the idea is light over darkness. Okay? So he puts this there in front of the product in bright. It's the ad is bright, of course, because you have to attract people. And again, if you're listening to this and you're in brand and you're in design, um, one of my best friend photographers said it to me. He said, "Ian, you cannot have light without dark. You need to have the darkness to see the light." And he's so true. And that what he said about photography is Diwali. You cannot have light without darkness. You need to
Mhm.
see the darkness needs to be there so the light can
All
show,
true. All true.
right? So this guy, whatever, did this thing, background, same colors as foreground, blah, 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 puts this deer. Now it's a nice looking deer. But I'm looking at the deer, I'm like, but the deer is huge and the flame is small. And then inside of the deer, you know the oil of the deer, you could see the wick in the oil. No, partner. The deer
Ah,
oil is a big flat color
oh my
and it
word.
looks like pea soup.
Oh no.
So it looks like somebody stuck
No.
a candle into pea soup.
Dude.
And I'm
I
like,
could
I
oh
go like, I'm like, you see, this is when I look at these things. Now, nobody would probably look at that and say, well, I have a problem with this. This looks terrible, whatever. But I look at that and go, now, if I was the creative director of that agency
mm,
or any other agency and a man brought that to me, I would have get on like our partner. I would have come to them, pelted to their face. I would write back an email. I would go Don Draper on them. I'm like, what the hell do you think you're doing? What the hell is this? This is shit. Do something else. No, I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have done.
let me
But
give
I
you
would
let me
have
give you
thought it. I would have
there
thought it.
was
I would be like, what the
there
hell are
was
you presenting me?
there was let me tell you, I don't know. I know for a fact that there was this ad that came out back in the 80s. Again, I have to cite the 1980s. Because in the 1980s you could do particular ads and just get away with murder. Somebody, I have no idea who, came up with this idea. What if we had a deer that looked like, you ready for this?
Mm.
You know, one of those lamps like from Aladdin? You rub the lamp and a genie pops out. Right.
What's the song by
Somebody,
Christina Aguilera? What's the song? If
oh,
you
genie in
rub,
a bottle. You rub me the right way. Yeah. Well, I I do remember that somebody had come up with this idea for a dia, and it looked like a lamp of a genie, and it was. They didn't make any attempts to and it didn't have any flame or anything like that, just the lamp. And and I remember the reaction of a friend of mine who's Hindu, who saw that and said, "Oh, what the blankety blank is this?" Except he didn't say blankety blank. And and they were like, "You have no idea what it is." And no, they don't. They really don't know. They just don't know. Now, on the other end of end of the spectrum, you had. I'm sure you're familiar with the idea of typography. You know, you're using letters and fonts and stuff like that, right? And like you said, Diwali is a central theme of light over darkness. And I think one of the more simplistic ideas, again, is using like you have light, just the word itself. Like, in fact, they did not even. This is the beautiful part about it. They didn't even. They just had light. Just the word itself, light, as a flame in a black page. Light. That's it. Just that.
Beautiful.
Just that. Just
Beautiful.
that. They didn't even bother to say, should Diwali just light?
Yeah.
And that black. And it stood out. You were like, yeah. And then bam, hits you.
Yeah.
You remember, like, okay. One of the things that that you know, one of those old ad guys from I mean, we're talking about pre-Mad Men here now. We're talking about a guy by the name of Leo Burnett.
Yeah.
Leo Burnett, who came up with the world famous Marlboro Man, and if I'm not mistaken, he also conceptualized oh God, this character, Tony the Tiger from Kellogg's. They're great. And he said, if you want to come up with a memorable print ad, you've got to make sure that you are as minimalist as possible. That is to say, don't have so many images or words competing for space. Just have a background. Make sure that the background is, his favorite background color was red, by the way. And one of his earlier ads was just featuring a slab of meat. I know it's not exactly the kind of subject matter we should be talking about, considering that it is Diwali, but here we are.
Yeah,
and he put it there, and he said, "But
we're not eating it.
We're not eating it, but he showed it, and it looked so appetizing because in his mind, the color red gave off feelings of hunger that you haven't been satiated as yet, and the meat is just there to enhance it." So he had that kind of thing. So when I saw this ad with light, it was like whoever came up with this idea, whoever was the artist that came up with this idea, took it from was inspired by what Burnett was saying, because being minimalist is the key. It's not necessarily the be all and end all in terms of coming up with an effective print ad, but it is an effective way of conveying emotion. And that is the one thing that I've always been mystified by and fascinated by, because that is what, because it's okay. You can have your pretty designs, and you can have flowery language. All of that is good. Don't get me wrong. All of that is good. But if you can come up with something like this, where you can look at it and say, "Hey, wait a minute! Wow, light." Amidst the word itself, light, just that one word in the shape of a flame, and everything else is black.
Yeah.
That stands out.
Yeah.
And you get excited by watching it. You think, oh, but I don't know who's the person who came up with this idea, but it's brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is that I had a client comment. I wasn't there. I was told it. So take it as you will, whether it's true or not.
Mhm.
I had a client tell somebody, can't remember if it was the copywriter or the art director, when they went to present,
Mhm.
saying, y'all like to put a lot of black in these ads. All you don't know, the black don't print on the papers, which is true.
Well,
Black
yeah.
does not black does not print on the papers because it gets the paper is very absorbent. So the black turns
Yes.
very gray, right?
Yes.
So there were
Yes.
tricks and ways of cheating to make the black what they call rich black, where you kind of put other colors into the black to make it rich looking. And usually
Right.
that ended up
Got it.
making it look more brown than anything else. But I mean, it wasn't gray. And the
Right.
comment was, all you put in the ad in some Vogue magazine where the colors come out good. All you can't do that. So don't present me nothing with black. But again, coming back to light needs to have darkness. How else you gonna put darkness if you don't put dark?
Oh,
You're
come
following?
on.
You see? So the problem has always been, and this also applies to blue. One of our
Yeah.
clients, the blue is very important. But the blue kept coming out as some kind of purple. And they like the colors purple, the colors always purple, because the color they chose does not translate to the print in the papers. But when we put it in magazines, it looked beautiful. It was perfect. But when you put
Yeah.
it in the local papers, it was. And these are the days we no longer deal with papers anymore. So just so you don't have to worry about that anymore. But color, understanding color and what happens when you finally produce color. And then there are people who look at their mobile phones and they say, this color off, fix it. And you're like, yeah, there's the color. You don't know the screen that you're using, whether it's your laptop screen, your TV screen, color will be shifting across the spectrum, color, and then your eyes too. Um, Famously, a friend of you wouldn't know him. He worked at the agency before you came.
Yeah.
Um, he said, I'm colorblind, and I looked at him and said, what the France are you working here then for? How can you be colorblind and
Oh,
approving artwork? And he was working for, and he was working. So I presented him Coca-Cola layouts, and he's
oh,
like,
good God.
I'm trusting you that the red is correct. I'm like, what? What? He's like, yeah, don't tell anybody. But I'm colorblind. All I see is a big gray here. I'm like, OMG. He, he's a great guy. He's a great guy. I love him to death. I
Yeah.
always see him ever so often, and we
Yeah.
always hang out. But I mean, the thing is that the thing is that to come back to color and light and dark and so on, contrast is important. You need contrast. You need to see.
Contrast.
You
Contrast is
know,
important. And again, I can't stress it enough. It's about being having a minimalist approach to the ad itself. I mean, okay. Let me give you another example, and it doesn't have anything to do with advertising, with animation. One of the I don't think Warner Brothers cartoons would have had the same kind of iconic heft were it not for one man, and that is Chuck Jones.
mm, mhm,
Chuck Jones, God bless him, wherever he is, also was a disciple of the minimalist motif.
mhm,
And you saw it in practically every single cartoon that he ever did. You
mhm,
saw it
mhm,
with Daffy Duck and Duck Amuck. You saw it, I
mhm,
think it's one of the best shorts ever. If you ever get a chance, Google it,
mhm.
watch it. You're gonna love it. It's funny, but look at the art. But look at the art behind. Look at the animation behind it.
Yeah,
It is stellar. It is
yeah.
stellar. Even with even with even with when he had to leave Warner Brothers, and he was working with on Tom and Jerry for MGM.
Yeah.
He just elevated it to a whole new level when you're looking at it, because and everything, and he paid attention to every single detail. Just don't think that just because you're a fan of minimalism, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have fewer things to work with. No, not at all. You have to concentrate on the detail and make sure that everything works the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
So I think that when you're coming up with a really great ad and a really great concept, if you can marry, that with if you can marry that with what you had originally intended to do, with the minimalism, and then pay attention to the detail behind it, you've got everything working well,
Yeah.
and you're really good, and you are excellent at what you do. So
Yeah.
that is why I think that sometimes, and you know what? Another thing that I remember as well is that you don't necessarily have to have a dia. You could have something else representing a dia, like a leaf.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some,
Yeah.
something as simple as that. As
Yeah.
simple as that. A leaf, and check it out, eh? And I think this is for oh gosh, this must have been for one of those alternative energy sources. I'm trying to remember who, but I can't right now because it escapes me. If you had a leaf and you have it against the sun itself, oh my gosh, look what you got.
Oh yeah,
You got
yeah, 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 yeah,
you
yeah. I
got
can see that. I can see
see
that.
that, right? You can
I
see
can
that
see that.
because not only are we talking about, not only are we making a great case for renewable energy, because one,
Mm.
you have a leaf, which is like the symbol. It was one of the many symbols of environmental consciousness, and then you have the
Mm.
sun, solar power, dia. Hey, look at that light over it.
Yeah.
Things like that. So
Yeah.
and it sure beats the idea of having something pretty, because not you want your ad to be pretty. Everybody wants their Diwali greetings ad, or whatever ad it is, if it's pertaining to a religious festival. Everybody wants it to be beautiful. That's understandable. But
Yeah.
if you want it to be memorable, you have to take some chances. You have to take do some things that you would not think of doing before,
Yeah.
and see where you can go with that.
Yeah.
And that's all.
We
That's all there is.
just so that we're coming down to the end of this episode, but one of the things we were supposed to, they're supposed to. I had a creative director who said, never tell anybody you're supposed to do something. Nobody cares about that. They only care about the end product, which is true.
They
But
always
we were supposed to do this session about Christmas parties because we're coming up to the Christmas season, and we're gonna bring on the general public and do a Facebook Live. But yours
yeah.
truly has been put into Facebook jail for the next 30 days. So it's going to be difficult for me to do something like that. I tried to figure something out to do it. We could do an Instagram Live, but I can't record it. So we we kind of stuck in a little bit of a jam here because there
Didn't I
isn't
tell you?
much. Huh?
Did I tell you about the Twitter Space?
I can't do it on Twitter.
Can't.
I have
Oh,
no, because
oh,
it's the same as Instagram. I can't record it. That's the
damn.
problem.
Ah,
So I will work on
good.
it. I'll continue to try to work on it. Maybe there's a way that I could download the recorded video from Twitter and then put that up on the podcast. But if we want to do a live session that is separate and apart from the podcast, I would have no problem doing that. If you want to do a live session with us doing it on Twitter and we just see how things go from there, no problem. But it won't be an episode of the podcast. We could announce it, and say, okay, we're going to do that next week or whatever. And, come and check
Got
us
it.
out on Twitter. No problem.
Okay.
But I can't do any promotion of the podcast because of Facebook. By the way, please don't ever put into Facebook. I have an article on my blog about how not to get into Facebook jail. Okay, one of the things is don't say men are, or women are, or gays are, or lesbians are. Once you put whatever follows from that,
Or,
instant ban.
or
Instant
Trinis
ban.
are. Or Trinis
No, no,
are.
no. Trinis are a-holes, that's fine. Nobody cares about Trinis. Once it's a pronoun,
You know what?
man, woman,
I say
child.
that. I say that because I once said Trinisa Collins, and I got a rap on the knuckles from the Facebook
Did?
police.
Really?
I did.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
I said
You see how
Trinisa
this
Collins.
bot is so, the bot is the R. Once it
Yeah.
sees the R, it looks at what's before and after and says you did something wrong.
Yeah. And I said, oh really? So I went on my page and I said it again. Trinis are cowards. I said it like about 4 times. And I said, I dare you to do it again. They never did.
Yeah. But you see,
Is
they
it
remember those things. Huh? The minute you see, I went and quoted, the first time this happened, I quoted, I wrote it in my blog, I quoted George Carlin.
right?
Women are crazy because men are stupid. And that was
Right.
it. I got a 1-day ban, one time, instant. And I was confused. I was like, but I just quoted, it was a quote from George Carlin. Nope,
Exactly.
nope, nope. So I went through the community guidelines. And the community guidelines don't actually say that they will ban you for this, but they are. So Facebook, this is why moving on to this metaverse thing, Facebook Meta. And when people tell me, I had a whole thing to say about Facebook Meta and then I got banned. So it's ironic. If you think that you are going to jump onto something like being in a total environment like Ready Player One with Facebook, you have another thing coming. You are going into 1984. Trust me, because
Oh no, 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 no. That
you will
won't be
be
me.
inside this metaverse thing with your VR goggles or whatever, and you will be moving along happily and say, "Hey, dog, what's going on? You got a big right X. You have been banned from participating in the metaverse for the next 7 days, and that's it. That's it.
So
So you have to understand that we are not in the state. We are not at that level yet where they're policing this thing properly. You know?
so if I wanted to go on Facebook and say that I wanted to kiss Salma Hayek's boobies, I would probably be thrown into Facebook jail too.
No, that's fine.
Oh, it's fine.
That's fine. That's
Really?
fine. That's
Okay.
fine. What if you comment on somebody's post and say something like, okay, so like a guy commented on one of the articles that I was reading as research,
Hmm.
and he said, I'm gay. And I went and told my gay friend that he's a wanker, or you are a wanker, you're a gay wanker, whatever. And he said I
Oh
got
my
banned for 30 days. I'm gay. Well, no, not me. I'm not gay. He says I'm gay. And I got banned for
Wait a
being,
minute. There's a popular meme on Facebook with Pulp Fiction, taken from Pulp Fiction. Do you know what they call a cigarette in England?
yes. And you get banned for that one time because you're being, and they tell you, I was banned for 30 days for bullying. And I'm like, but I just told the person if you don't take the vaccine, you're just killing yourself. And that was it. I got banned for 7 days, one time, because I was bullying the man. I'm like, but
but
just, if you don't take the vaccine, you're killing yourself. Suicide, anything suicidal. I have a list on my blog. Go and check it out. But
I
the,
think
the
it
thing,
will. This is
yeah,
wild.
the thing is that and then I have comments. If you read the comments of people who commented on the blog, was saying, we don't even know why. Why would you just, you say, well, all of a sudden I can't post and I don't know why. And then I have to go and hunt and look for why this reason for. And then the reason is so vague. It says you've gone against the community guidelines, but there's nothing in the community guidelines that says that. The Wall Street Journal did an article where they wrote about um, this thing, and they said even Facebook themselves have not have not acknowledged that the algorithm that they're using after the whole Senate hearings is just indiscriminately banning people, and they're not addressing it because there's no human involved. There's no, when you do an appeal, it just goes back to the bot, and the bot says, no, no, no. So there's no point. You can't, and that is not justice. You see, and I
That's
keep
dumb.
saying this.
That's really dumb.
There's no, you say, imagine your justice system running like Facebook community guidelines. All of us would, and this is 1984. It's thought police, and these are the things that people are worried about. So jumping on the metaverse with Facebook, no thanks. No, no thanks, not yet anyway. Not if they're going to be doing what they're doing now. Anyway,
I'd like
uh-huh.
to jump into a bowl of Jello with Anna de Armas, but that's another story.
But that's not important right now.
That's not right now.
All right, so we're gonna put an end to this, and
Yes.
I hope that people listen to this. Please share it, like it, whatever. Send it around to your friends. Thank you for listening to this whole long rambling story about
Yes.
things. This Facebook jail has thrown us off our kilter. So, Jared, you and I will sit down, kind of work something out. Go ahead and follow us on Twitter at Redesigns and at
Jared Butts, one word. You follow me, I'll follow you back.
right. And we will probably do a live session on Twitter and see how that works out. Just for the fun of it. Let's see let's do that. Let's do that next week. I think we could do that next week. We'll just go and figure out the Twitter thing, and we'll go and do a live session. If not, we'll do it on Instagram. You do have an Instagram account. Yes, you do. You do have an Instagram.
Yes, I do have an Instagram account.
Yeah, we could do a live Instagram instead if the Twitter doesn't. We'll try something. We'll try something. But for both of those, you need to be on camera. So put on your makeup and look less scary than you do.
Oh,
you man with a face for radio. No, we love you, Jared. We love you. All your fans love you. All your fans love you.
I'm sure they do.
Please contribute. We have a PayPal thing for now. We're trying to figure something out. Send money, please, because we really appreciate it. We would really like to do more with this thing. We would like to attract foreign people as well. I want to bring in some people from away to talk about their. When I say away, that's the way we say it in Trinidad. Somebody from a different country to give their experiences of working in an agency. So, and if you're interested in jumping on to talk about your experiences working in anything, actually, I have a girl that I want to bring on, but I'll talk about that off the air later.
Got it.
We're going up to the end of November. We might have to extend it. I might want to extend it into the first week in December because of this Facebook jail thing. So we could do our live session on Facebook and do all of these things that we wanted to do this week. We could probably do it after I come out of jail. So look out for that. Yep.
Right.
Good, Jared. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So what are we defining today? What is our definition?
What is our definition? Okay. What is our definition? What is our definition? What is our definition?
Are you defining? We're not defining Diwali. I think we defined that already.
Yep, I think we define what. Yeah.
Can you define the armas?
Why not? Wait. I got it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. How do we define? How do we define a sexy Cuban actress? Yes.
She's Cuban? She's Cuban?
You didn't know that? She's Cuban.
That's why. Okay, well, if for some reason, for some weird twist of, you don't know, she happens to listen to this, we love you.
We love you, Anna. Highly unlikely that she would sticker us.
Amor. Hi, John. Thanks a lot. Okay. Cold shower, John. Cold shower.
What's a cold shower? Oh yeah, that's what we take when we want to. Yes. Mm-hmm. When we want to be revitalized. That's not important
right now. Good night, all. Have a good weekend.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Okay.